So I'm going to go ahead and replace this connector. This is a Dorman 664322 throttle position sensor for the 82 to 84. We'll go ahead and plug it in and make sure before we go and connect everything, we'll make sure that it actually is the right connector and that it fits correctly. And it does, right? So that's good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the bottom. So here's our bottom wire. I'm going to go ahead, cut that. And then I'm going to cut the bottom wire. All right, I'm going to do them one at a time, just so I don't mess that up. So we'll go ahead and trim this out, and then I like winding them up. By winding them up, I can, when I push the connector in, it doesn't fray and want to go in a different direction. Go ahead and take a crimp connector. Lock that down. Over to the other side. Down. Now we've got both of them crimped. Go ahead and heat shrink it. You just shrink it until the glue starts coming out on both ends. There we go, there's one down. Then we'll go ahead and we'll do the middle. And we'll do the middle one here. Twist. Give our connector. Put that down in there. Squeeze. Squeeze. Up. for the glue to come out. Take our third one. Get rid of our connector. Twist. And when you crimp these things down, you've got that metal tube in there. You want to make sure that your crimpers have a little bit of tube on each side of them. I've seen a lot of them where they're crimped right on the edge and they tend to pull apart later. Now, they're crimped down good, right? But the other thing that really helps is when you use this shrink. One, it waterproofs it, and two, that glue kind of holds it together as well. Just keep heating, moving, wait for that glue to come out on each side. And there we go. All right. So now we'll go ahead and we'll double check ourselves. Always want to turn your meter off and back on. Your meters have a tendency to go to sleep after a while. And that can really mess with you. Meter's asleep and you're like, why don't I have power? So I have 5 volts there, right? Top and bottom, just like we started out with, which means these two connections are good. We'll go ahead and plug it back in. Now we're going to be careful with this pin not to slice in on that insulation or ruin that brand new pin. So there, I think that's going to be good. Put this to ground just because it's easier. Put that on there. 5.5. So our connections are good, right? So we've got our throttle position sensor connected and adjusted in correctly. We changed out the connector because these connectors get brittle and when you try to pull back on the bar, they just snap. So I've replaced a couple of them on here. I think the EGR was a problem. And there was another connector or two that I put in here. So anything that had a broken connector, I went ahead and replaced. Use these solderless connectors, but with the heat shrink, you can see the little bit of glue coming out on both sides. That's going to make it waterproof, seal it up nice and tight. All right. Thanks, YouTube. So I just wanted to show you these connectors that I was using since you didn't really see a good one in the video, but they come in red, blue, yellow. This is a crimp style connector, right? And so I'd crimp it across here. As I was saying earlier in the video, you don't want to crimp on the edge, you want to crimp in from the edge. Then once you crimp it, then you can go ahead and put a torch or a lighter to these outsides edges, and they will shrink in on that on the insulation of your wire, and then allow like a little glue to come out the edge to give you a perfectly watertight connection. So the red is the smallest. Blue is for a slightly larger wire, and then I didn't bring a yellow one in, but the yellow ones are even bigger. Then the other ones that I have, and I actually don't use these as much. Instead of the crimp connector like this one, right? You can see that big metal tube in there. This actually has a solder ring inside there, and you squeeze, you put your wires in from both sides, and you overlap them, and then you torch the center. And when you torch the center, this ring melts and solders the joint together. Then you can shrink both ends. You know, sometimes I seem to have a problem with the soldered stuff. A lot of people, oh, you got to solder things, but I found a lot of times that when I try to melt this ring, I distort the plastic around it. Maybe I'm just using too big of a torch. I don't know, but those are the type connectors that I prefer to use. You can obviously use regular black shrink tape and twist the wires together, solder them, and then slide the shrink tape over them. All methods work well. All right. All right, good morning, YouTube. I'm going to try this again, maybe 30 times is the charm. Every time I try to adjust this throttle position sensor, I go back in, watch the video, and you can't see the voltmeter. But we'll try it one more time. So we're going to put the voltmeter on DC volts. I just replaced the connector on the last video that didn't show up. So if we put the voltmeter, if we put our probes in the top and the bottom, we should get 5 volts, which we do, 5.08, right? So that's good. So we know that we have our power and our ground. To adjust this thing, I'm going to take a T-pin, and I'm going to slide it right down beside the wire, right? The middle wire. Here's your sense wire or your signal wire. And I'm going to slide it right down there, and I'm going to try to slide the wire right up against the metal, right? You do not want to cut this, pinch it, probe through it. All that does is allow water intrusion and salt to get back there later, corrode the wire, then the voltage gets awry, right? Then I'm going to put the black on the negative side of the battery, since the battery's right here and it's just easier. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to touch that probe, and we have 5.57, right? So the spec is 0.525 plus or minus 2.5, right? And we have 0.55, so we have just over half a volt. That's good. Like I said, I've done this a couple of times trying to get the camera to pick up on this thing, but we'll loosen up the screws on our throttle position sensor. You can see now I'm at millivolts, right? 348 millivolts. That's what the M stands for. So we come up and we'll bring it up. And as we bring it up, you can see we're at 0.3, 0.45, right? We'll go ahead and start tightening it down. So we're at 0.479. Go to wide open throttle, 4.93. Back off of it, 0.643. Right. So we're a little high, so we'll go ahead and bring it back down just a touch. So we're at 0.661, all right? Once again, go to wide open throttle, 482. Let it go back down. We're at 6. So we're still a little high. So now we're at 555, right? Just over half a volt. That's pretty good. We're 5.27 plus or minus 2.5, right? So 4.73, 562. Next thing you want to do is let's see exactly what the throttle does when I actually open it by the throttle plate. So 4.24 is wide open throttle. Let it snap down. 5.4, right? So if I lightly let off the throttle, it's 5.73. If I snap the throttle down, it's 5.42. So I'm going to bring it down just another little bit. Try that. There's 0.536. Let's go to wide open throttle. 412. 5.39. So that really is good. And we'll go ahead and snap it. 495. So I want to bring it back up to that half a volt range. So let's go ahead and bring it up just a smidge more. Let's see what we have now. 4.2, 5.71. Or I'm sorry, 0.571. So, and then let's just drop it, snap the throttle, 0.545. So that's, now we're really close, right? That is 0.52 plus or minus 2.5. So we're right in range. So I'm gonna bring it down just a little bit more. Tighten it up because I think we're right now. So now we're at 0.535. All right, so that's perfect. Wide open throttle, 442, 5.5. So that's plus or minus, right? So we're in that range. If I snap it shut, 0.523. So that's perfect. Right? That's absolutely perfect. If I just let the throttle close on its own, 0.554. So we're in range if we just let go of the throttle, and we're perfect if we snap the throttle shut, right? So I'm going to just double check my bolts, make sure that they're tight. And there we go. We have the throttle position sensor adjusted properly. So we're right on the thing, right? 0.525. That's exactly where it's supposed to be, plus or minus a quarter of a volt. So, so we could go down, or I'm sorry, 0.025. So we could have gone to anywhere from 0.50 to 0.5556, somewhere in there, right? And we're at 525, so that's going to be good. Go to wide open throttle again, 4.2, 419. We let off of it, 4.68. Go to wide open throttle, snap it shut. There's 4.9, right? Bring the throttle all the way up. There's 4.78. Let it come back, 5.45, or I'm sorry, 0.545. So we're good, right? So I'll adjust it. Everything's good. All right. Looks a little high there, 575, 505. So there's actually a pretty big difference. It's almost a half a volt exactly if I let the throttle snap shut versus if I just ease off of the throttle, right? 5.48. So, and we still have to adjust the throttle plates on this. We'll do that later. That'll be another video. We'll get the manometer out and we'll get these things tuned in, but we got to get that, right? So that should be good. Disconnect that, pull our T-pin out. Notice that we didn't hurt any of the wires. That's, you know, you never want to use one of those things and probe into the wire. It's just another spot to let water intrusion in. So, and then if you live anywhere that's around the beach or up north where you put salt, then all of a sudden it starts corroding, degrading, and then you're going to have problems, right? So let's just start it up real quick. Make sure that it idles down. So it runs good, seems to idle good. I just put the motor back together, so I don't have the O2 sensor in there and some of the rear exhaust hooked up, so that's why you're hearing that exhaust leak. I wanted to make sure that I fired it up and got all the coolant out of the exhaust system and burned off before I put a brand new O2 sensor in there. So that's our throttle position sensor, right? And that's how we adjust it. Everything's good. All right, YouTube, thank you.